Hey, good morning everybody. Back here Monday morning for our kind of regular Mondays. We're going to try and get back on track on this Indian Larry tribute build. I think the plan today is to look at getting some of the rear sheet metal stuff mounted up. So we got the rear fender, we have the oil tank with battery box, we have some air ride system, rigid air they call it. So it's the rigid frame. You don't see seat springs, but then you can air up the seat and have a little cushion on your seat there. So I'm not really sure how that's going to fit in conjunction with the battery box. I'm a little curious on that. I've never used one of these systems before, but it is something Larry used to use, and my buddy who this bike is for didn't want to have a rigid mounted seat. So we are going to try and figure this system out and see how it works. Shouldn't be too terrible, I don't think. We'll get the rear fender mounted in the front. We're still kind of up in the air as to whether or not we're just going to do struts, if we're going to do some kind of a small sissy bar, something like that. So, but we can definitely get it mounted in front on the crossbars on the frame and figure out what we're going to do from there. So if I get those three things done today, I'll be happy. That may not even happen. You know, I'm always on a kind of a tight time frame here on Mondays, couple hours, and then I got to get out of here. So anyway, I hope you guys are enjoying this build. I appreciate you joining us. If you're new to the channel, please don't forget to subscribe. Also, last thing before we get to work, end of the year's coming up, obviously, and we're trying to get things cranking on the channel a little bit better for next year. And we're really interested in hearing from the viewers. What types of things do you guys want to see? You know, are you enjoying these builds? The weekly kind of progress on one particular build. Does this not interest you? You know, I know it interests me, but I already see this, so I don't need to make a video for me to watch. So I want to make videos that you guys want to see, and so please, leave in the comments if this stuff is what you like, or if there's other things. Do you want to see more, little piece technical videos, how to do one particular thing, and you're not really so interested in the process of building a whole bike? I started doing that because I don't see a lot of it on YouTube, and I thought it was kind of a open area that nobody was doing, but maybe nobody's doing it because people don't want to really see it. So anyway, we are always open to suggestion or ideas or whatever you have. Again, we make these videos for you guys to watch and enjoy. So if you're not watching them, or if you do watch them but it's not really your thing, we want to know. So anyway, that's that. I'm going to get out into the shop and start working on this Panhead. Alright, so first thing we got here is our barrel oil tank. Came with a little bit of hardware here, so let's see what we got. Alright, so it did come with this little bracket that'll mount to the front of the frame, it looks like. And take this rubber mount, so we're not doing too bad there. Let's see if they gave us any nuts for this. So we got our stock frame mount. I gotta grab a wrench and pull this out. That's from the old teardown. And then it comes with this rubber mount. The rubber mount threads into the oil tank. Problem is the studs on this are too long, so we'll go ahead and shorten that down, thread that into the oil tank, and then we can get this plate mounted on here, and we'll look at the height of it. We may end up, when this plate goes on here, We may end up needing to space it up and down just depending on how the oil tank lands with everything fit together. So I'm going to grab some tools, cut this bung down, and then we'll come back and fit this tank. Alright, so we got our tank in, but you can see here, I'll zoom you in, we've got a pretty significant gap on this plate to our frame tab, which is okay. And actually, if you roll this tank, it gets us a little closer, but it gets us kind of out of whack with it. So what I got to do now is measure up, and we'll have to cut some spacers. We'll see what length they are, and then we can jump on the lathe and machine up some spacers real quick. So I think we're going to go with some 1-inch spacers. We can always fine tune them if they're a little too tall, but I think that's going to get us right where we want. So we'll head on over to the lathe, grab some material, and turn up some spacers. Alright, so we got some 1-inch round bar. We're going to use this to make our spacers. First thing we're going to do is get this end faced off. It's always the first process whenever you're cutting anything on the lathe. We'll get the drill bit, center drill, and drill our clearance hole for a 5/16 mounting bolt. So this is our mounting tab that mounts to the frame. We're going to look here. We're about 7/8 OD there. The frame will take a 1-inch OD, so what we're going to want to do is cut a slight taper on there. You don't have to do this, it's just, again, one of the little decorative things we try to do. So I'm going to go to a taper calculator. You can see here, this is the taper calculator. It's omnitapercalculator.com. Comes up as the first result on Google. We do diameter 1 is 1 inch. Minor diameter, that's the small, is 0.875. And the taper length, that's our 1 inch. So that gives us a 3.578 degree taper. We're not trying to be super accurate on this because it's just a spacer, so we'll just call it 3.5 degrees. So we will change the angle on our compound right here. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's got 1 degree delineations. So again, we're just going to eyeball this because it's just a decorative taper. It doesn't have to be precise. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3. Now we got that set. Alright, so we got our angle set. We're going to go ahead and make our first cut, nice light cut, just to get our zero set. Alright, so we got both our spacers cut. Grab some hardware. And go ahead and get this front mount bolted in. Alright, we got those front mounts in. Now we just got to look at these rears, which it came with some goofy little brackets, but they're certainly not going to work. So obviously we want to have this thing squared up. Just tearing up a little piece of cardboard here we're going to use to shim the oil tank from the top of the frame. So that way we can squeeze it up against the cardboard, mount it, then pop the cardboard out and it'll get us a little bit of breathing room. Put this in here. Alright, so we got that clamp. That's going to hold our tank in place for now. Let us look everything over. We got our cardboard shims in here. And then we got our two rear mounting tabs, which all we need to do is make some little drop downs from the cross bar of the frame here. Let me move this around so you guys can see better. So we got our frame tube here and a tab off of the oil tank, one on each side. So we'll just measure up. I'll go cut some parts on the plasma table and then we'll clean this frame off and we can tack weld those mounts onto there. Pretty simple deal there. You can see here's the oil tank mount here. So we'll come back and up and that'll come right to this frame rail. And we'll just weld that across. Nothing crazy, just a nice simple clean mounting tab. Alright, so we got our first mounting tab in. I'm going to go ahead and get it tacked to the frame. Alright, now that we got that, we can get rid of our clamp, which is in the way of our other tab going in. So here's our clamps we made up. Again, just an L, cut a slot in it. Nothing real fancy. Could make them by hand if you needed. So there we got our tank all mocked up, pulled our cardboard out. Nice little, 330 seconds or so gap. And we are on to the next thing. Alright, next up we're going to look at this seat shock kit. See what they've given us. And what we're going to need to make and all this good stuff. So I'm going to guess this is the airbags, which are quite a bit larger than I was expecting, but that's alright. Alright, so they give you some nice nylock nuts for final assembly, but they're a real pain in the ass for mock-up, so I just grabbed some regular hex nuts for now, so that we can just put all this stuff together by hand. Alright, so this is our setup. Now the key is going to be figuring out how to get this in this bike. From what I'm seeing here, it's going to take up a good amount of a good amount of battery space, which may not be a problem. We can probably get a lithium battery, or we can put the battery down underneath the transmission or something, so I'm not too worried about that. I don't really like this bracket because it allows the bag to touch the frame before the, you know, with a slight bit of rubbing, and it, I guess that's really my only complaint. I wish it was spaced forward like another, you know, 1/4 inch or so. I really feel like it should drop down lower too, but I guess we don't have that much movement, so it's, I'm gonna be honest, I hate this type of stuff on a bike. To me, the whole point of a bike like this is to keep it super simple and clean, and you should just have a damn seat bolted to the frame. But this is sometimes what we got to deal with when we're doing something for someone else. So the fender's going to end up coming even further forward, so we're really going to be in the battery box with these things. Which, I mean, it's not the end of the world. I just need to modify this bracket some. And then this bracket will end up bolting on here, and the seat bolts to it. So, I mean, that's okay. So, I think what I'm going to do is stop here, because I got to talk to my buddy. It's his bike. And make sure he's going to be okay with relocating the battery to a non-traditional place, taking up the whole battery box with these airbags. See what I can come up with for these. Like I said, I've never used these before. They're not really my favorite, but I do get why people want to use them. Alright, so last thing we're going to look at today is getting our fender mounted up here. Need to find a piece of old chain. I like to lay a piece of motorcycle chain across the tire and use that to space the fender out. Alright, so now we got our fender kind of secured in place where we want it. First thing to do is get it marked on the bottom. We'll trim the bottom off. Then we're going to measure for our spacer for this bottom mount, which is already on the frame, so we'll utilize that. Looks like a 1-inch spacer. Square up our tire, or our fender rather. Alright. So, as you can see here, we got our lower frame mount outside dimension there, so we'll find the center of this and drill our mounting hole. And then here and here we'll connect across and cut this off of the fender. Alright, so we got our bottom cut off of our fender. Alright, so we turned up a nice little spacer, a couple little radiuses for decoration. This will get polished on final assembly. So we're going to go ahead and see about getting this fender fit and marking to drill the hole. Alright, so drill our pilot hole. We use a step drill. I like using step drills or roto broaches on sheet metal. It makes a nice round hole, cleaner than a twist drill. And I don't know where my roto broaches are right now, so I'm going to use the step drill. Alright, we got our hole drilled. This fender cut is a little crooked. I'm going to have to clean that up. But that's all final assembly stuff. So, jump back over to the bike and get this thing bolted on. Alright, so we got our bottom mount done, looking good. Got our fender just about where we want. And next up will be this backbone, or middle mount rather. Normally what I do for here is split a piece of tubing that'll fit over here, drill and tap, and then weld a flat plate between the fender and that for a nice clean mount that goes under the seat. Kind of leaning that way, but I'm out of time for today. Alright guys, that's going to be a wrap for today. Didn't get everything we wanted finished. Got the fender part of the way there. Got the oil tank all mounted, and we're kind of in a little bit of a holding pattern with this seat setup until I talk to my buddy, because I don't know, we'll just see what happens with it. I know they work well, but to me it's just going to overly complicate the bike. It's going to require an air compressor and extra switches, and I don't know. We will see how it goes. We'll either figure out a way we want to mount it, or we'll ditch it, and I guess you'll just have to stay tuned to see which. Other than that, we're out of here. And we hope to see you next time at Gatti's Garage.